Deathcore's biggest catalysts are not just hardcore with extreme metal. In a nutshell, deathcore actually is death metal's most atrocious and most extreme nuances, combined with one stylistic trait from hardcore.
What's up? What's up? What the fuck's up, Diddy?
When bands began incorporating metalcore with death metal, bands like Job for a Cowboy, Suicide Silence, Despised Icon, and Antagony are all pioneering bands of deathcore. But in this video, we will go even further down that line. Deathcore gained traction after the decline of nu metal, while the metalcore era was in full swing. In this video, we're going to highlight the hardcore and death metal bands that paved the way for much of the newly founded deathcore glory. We will see which brutal bands serve as the catalysts for deathcore. So if this is your cup of tea, we hope you like it demonic and red hot.
It's clearly free time, baby.
From the core in its name, one could imply that the hardcore plays a big part, but it's not quite that deep. During the early years, there were a few bands that blended the two very tastefully. But deathcore is a more enclosed extreme metal genre with a particular kick for hardcore sound. Bands like Cannibal Corpse, Goreguts, Nile, and Bolt Thrower aren't exactly associated with this subgenre, but their generation pioneered deathcore. Let us know if you'd like to see more death metal content featured on the channel. Also, you should totally subscribe to the channel with notifications for more degenerate metal content. Deathcore was pushed to its extreme levels thanks to the crushing mid-paced grooves and the filthy breakdowns. The momentum by three death metal bands that we will talk about next pushed the envelope and chopped the earth in half, and in this process inspired other fusion subgenres associated with death metal. In conjunction with the death growls, the down-tuned guitars, and the blast beats from death metal, deathcore was lacking just one thing, and this is the almighty breakdown. The breakdown was already being used in metal, but hardcore had a special type, one that makes you want to cause some serious disrespect to your surroundings. Subgenres of hardcore such as beatdown hardcore and hardcore punk were key for the development of deathcore. Breakdowns are used in many genres of music, and it varies in execution depending on the musical context. According to Wikipedia, a breakdown is a part of a song in which various instruments have solo parts, breaks. Its presentation is available on bluegrass music, disco, hardcore, punk, and of course deathcore, amongst basically every genre of music. Without a doubt, Suffocation is an important band for the deathcore genre. Their contributions to death metal helped immensely, not only to the deathcore bands, but for the whole subgenre of death metal. Their influence can be traced to other subgenres as well, such as brutal and slam metal. Their debut album serves as a blueprint for any brand of extreme death metal. On the album Effigy of the Forgotten, the use of breakdowns and slam riffs was introduced for the first time. However, this being introduced for the first time is up for debate. It is worth mentioning, however, that this is how you effing do it, because this is as brutal as you can get. Nothing beats the devilish undertones of deathcore as they are being conceived. The brutal nature of this music cuts you unpleasantly in the face, and although the use of the breakdown wasn't quite a thing yet, Suffocation reminds us of the real essence, back when the genre wasn't quite a meme. Despise the Sun EP by Suffocation is yet another prime example of how to do the whole death metal thing. With great assurance and underground recognition, the album Destroy the Opposition by Dying Fetus was released in October 2000 and was immediately submerged in political waters, but it is a highly influential death metal album. Lyrically, this album was key for the development of deathcore. This album would continue their DIY efforts from Killing on Adrenaline, where the band had been releasing albums through small labels and also performing locally. The lyrics express the band's strong stance against political and social authoritarianism, questioning oppressive authorities and asserting their rights. Destroy the Opposition conveys a message of resistance and bold aggression, serving as a powerful call to arms for those who feel marginalized or oppressed. The album, characterized by clear production, combined diverse styles and became a significant influence on death metal and beyond. Its mix of hooks, intense rhythms, and frenzied riffs makes it a widely influential album. Another influential death metal band from the 90s from New York was Internal Bleeding. They are pioneers of slam and brutal death metal. There's a lot to unpack on the album Driven to Conquer. It depicts a style of brutal death metal which could pass up as traditional, but it manages to stay at the forefront of death metal. This album was released almost 20 years ago, but we can still hear common patterns in today's deathcore. Driven to Conquer has a rather slammy riff sound, and it's a fine example of a good pre-deathcore sound, without any studio shenanigans. Another captivating song from this rather clear-sounding album is Inhuman 99, which keeps the brutality at close range with the same type of lyrics as in Destroy the Opposition by Dying Fetus. Internal Bleeding's album that had the song Inhuman 99 was actually released a year prior to Destroy the Opposition. So far, we have looked at 3 highly intensive death metal bands who opened the gates of hell. Deathcore also derived from the special blend of metalcore with hardcore. These next 2 bands were aiming at a totally different vibe altogether, and given their little social media presence, very rarely do these get talked about.
What the fuck? Let's fucking destroy this place!
The sound that Disembodied had in the album Heretic had fewer blast beats and more breakdowns. More metalcore moments, but also no death growls. However, it is still quite an aggressive hardcore blend. The band was formed in 1995, and they released 2 studio albums under this name: Diablerie in 1997 and Heretic in 1999. However, after several members of the band left Disembodied, they formed Martyr AD in 1999 and brought with them Charlie Johnson on guitars and Mike Fiskett on vocals. Martyr AD would go on to feature more death metal traits than Disembodied. Beneath the Plague has some double bass pedal action, and the riffs are also way more death metal. On Earth As It Is in Hell was the last record released through Victory Records, and it is a magnificent crossover album for anyone seeking to unearth the nastiest deathcore pre-Slaughter to Prevail, Emure, and all those other bands. Tracks like Bring Out Your Dead serve as another example of deathcore in the making, and both Martyr AD and Disembodied are worth checking out if you're into some metal history. Hey, don't forget to check out the blog for more heavy metal content. If you really want to get a feel for raw pre-deathcore madness, then look no further than The Eternal Jihad by Day of Suffering. Allegedly named after a Morbid Angel song, in many ways they now represent an extinct breed of deathcore, both conceptually and sonically. With deicide and other death metal influences, the Eternal Jihad starts off with a Malcolm X intro followed by the full-on Slayer death metal send-along, with the hardcore stuff later to be revealed in greater detail by around the 1:30 mark. The track is mainly about a world dominated by evil that has been wrongfully twisted. A controversial song titled Elegy was eventually disowned by the band. The song was mostly about anti-abortion. Day of Suffering is regarded as a veganism, death, liberation, straight edge band, and they represented a subgenre and a culture in the making, where bands weren't so easily drawn to what the herd was doing. The album flows through the hate in a special way. The Eternal Jihad is a passionate attempt to deliver unhinged aggression that you just cannot miss. In the hardcore world, we have Hatebreed, strongly rooted in Connecticut, formed in 1994 with their own brand of hardcore mixed with some heavy metal. They helped deathcore become an established force, although they are basically a hardcore band. They've toured with many metal bands such as Dying Fetus, and they've even played at Wacken. Satisfaction is the Death of Desire maintains a staunchly heavyweight attitude leaning towards bluntly hardcore. In 1995, after the release of the EP Under the Knife, the band signed with Victory Records, and their style remains found in classic beatdown hardcore. Once a death metal band, Embrace the Eternal by Embodiment explored Christ's crucifixion through hardcore, and the album explored topics regarding Christianity. However, the message of Christ in them would be so powerful that their distinct hardcore blend and their broad understanding would lead them to incorporate death metal in a very unique way. Double bass drum pedals and growling vocals played a significant role on this album, by far one of the most extreme hardcore bands from this side of the fence. A darker sound, but just as extreme as Embodiment, 18 Visions released their debut album in 1999, titled Yesterday is Time Killed. Like many deathcore bands, they sound just as brutal in the breakdowns, with those hardcore style riffs that just disconnect your limbic state into an angry super lizard. With influences from Slayer and death metal, at the beginning of Raping, Laughing, Tasting, Temptation, the temperament begins above 10, but it's evident that hardcore also takes over the situation in the song. Like we said, it's brutal and hardcore, and it's a pretty good mix that you really shouldn't miss out on. Deathcore really had the luxury of submerging cultures with close ties and a general love for aggressive music. I mean, with influences from Dying Fetus, Internal Bleeding, Suffocation, Hatebreed, and many, many more, the extremeness of it all is quite devastating, really. Let us know in the comments below what you thought about today's topic, and give it a like if you liked the video. Subscribe if you already haven't, and remember everybody, stay metal.